From a crying ring bearer to bad weather, there are always going to be things that we just inevitably can't control at our weddings. However, there are some really important things that we have total control over that we can anticipate and nip in the bud, and that's what I'm going to be talking about today. These are 6 common mistakes that you need to avoid at your wedding ceremony. My name is Brittany. I guess you can call me a wedding enthusiast. I'm also getting married at some point in the future when all of this global madness has calmed down. And all of these tips come from my own bad experiences at certain weddings. First mistake, leaving your guests in the sun, in direct sunlight with no relief. So as a very pale person myself, I have been to weddings that were in the sun with no shade, where we sat there for like a good 30 minutes and I didn't know that this was gonna be the case. And so I actually got like a little sunburn. And this isn't what you want for your very pale guests, I'm assuming. So my suggestion would be to do one of a few things. You can first of all let your guests know that the ceremony is gonna be outside and not in the shade, and to bring their own sunscreen and sunglasses. And or if you wanna be really sweet, you could provide your guests with some cheap sunglasses and maybe have some bottles of sunscreen available on the sides of the aisles. If you have the room in your budget, you could even go with parasols, which would be really cool. I actually picked one up at the dollar store recently and I thought, oh man, this would make for a pretty cool piece in a wedding photo shoot. And would also be really nice for protecting your guests against the direct sunlight. The second mistake I urge you to avoid is having your wedding ceremony go on way too long. A wedding ceremony should never go more than an hour. An hour is really pushing it. Honestly, 45 minutes is pushing it. As a wedding guest, I really want to enjoy your ceremony, and then I'm looking forward to getting to the drinks and the food. Depending on what time your wedding ceremony is, a lot of your guests haven't eaten. They'll be showing up to your wedding hungry and getting hungrier and hungrier by the minute. Keep your wedding ceremony short and sweet, 30 to 35 minutes max, so that your guests can totally enjoy and be present in your wedding ceremony and not like looking at their watches waiting for it to end. The third wedding ceremony mistake is having no microphone. Yes, this is a big deal. You need to have a microphone at your wedding. Now, if your wedding is only like 10 guests, then maybe not. But I have been to weddings where I couldn't hear anything. I couldn't hear the vows at all, and that was really a detriment to me being able to enjoy the experience. It doesn't cost a lot of money. You can rent a microphone and speakers for a few $100s. Make sure that's in your budget. It's important that your guests can hear what's going on at the ceremony, can hear your vows, can hear the sweet, nice stories, and not just the first 2 rows being able to hear these things. The fourth mistake is making your guests stand for longer than 10 to 15 minutes. So anyone out there who's planning on having a wedding ceremony that's not seated, that's fine, you can do that. I've been to some cool standing wedding ceremonies, but don't make them long. Keep in mind that even if your wedding ceremony is 10 to 15 minutes long, your guests had to go out there beforehand and stand in place and wait for a little while. So when all is said and done, they might have been standing for 20, 30, maybe even 40 minutes. Some of us are wearing very high heels. And that's not even to mention your elderly guests or guests who use canes or who have disabilities. So just keep all of your guests in mind, and if you're gonna have a standing wedding ceremony, please make it short. The fifth mistake you can make is having reserved seating for maybe the first row or the first 2 rows, but not telling people that they are supposed to be seated in the reserved seats. What ends up happening is that you have an empty row because people didn't know they were supposed to sit in those seats. And this can be both kind of awkward for you as a couple when you're standing at the altar and there's just nobody in the front row, and it also looks kind of sad for photos. So let anyone who's getting a reserved seat know, even if it's very obvious to you, that they need to be sitting in the reserved seats. You could go a step further and make this super obvious by actually putting their names on the reserved seats. And finally, my 6th mistake to mention today in your wedding ceremony is having a wedding officiant, or I guess hiring a wedding officiant, someone to officiate your wedding who doesn't really know you or who you have no connection with. I've been to friends and family's weddings whose officiant didn't really even seem to quite know their names, to be honest. And because there didn't seem to be a real personal connection between the officiant and the couple, things didn't flow as smoothly, they didn't seem as emotional. And so I think because your officiant is really like the center of your wedding, you really need to take some time and choose someone who is special to you. If you're not planning on getting married in any particular religious denomination, you can get somebody from your family or a friend who you really love to get certified and marry you. So guys, please take these 6 tips seriously. Don't make these mistakes. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel for more wedding chat just like this. Thanks, bye!